The movie opens with a young storyteller named Iolaus, who's being held captive by some locals. To frighten them off, he begins to tell them the story of his uncle, Hercules, the legendary demigod son of Zeus. Zeus, the king of the gods, had a child with a mortal woman named Alcmene. Their son, half human and half god, was named Hercules. When Hercules reached manhood, the gods commanded him to complete 12 dangerous missions. If he survived them all, Hera would finally allow him to live in peace. It begins with Hercules facing the Lernaean Hydra, a massive, six-headed serpent that bursts out of a river. With his unmatched strength and skill, Hercules slays the monster, cutting off its heads one by one. Next, he's chased by the fearsome Erymanthian boar, which he swiftly kills using his weapon. Then he battles the Nemean lion, a creature with skin so tough no blade could pierce it. After being knocked to the ground, Hercules grabs the lion and rips its jaws apart with his bare hands. Back in the present, pirate leader Gryza and his men don't believe Iolaus' tales about Hercules. But suddenly, Hercules himself steps out of the shadows to save his nephew. Gryza, shocked to see the demigod in the flesh, orders his men to attack. Hercules effortlessly defeats them with a few powerful blows. When the rest of the pirates charge, Hercules' loyal companions join the fight. Amphiaraus of Argos, the prophetic warrior king, Autolycus of Sparta, a master thief, Tydeus of Thebes, a feral mute barbarian, and Atalanta of Scythia, a deadly Amazon archer. Together, they annihilate Gryza's crew and rescue Iolaus. Later, Amphiaraus receives a fiery vision, a lion and a crow in strange alliance, fighting across a sea of corpses. After counting the dead pirates for payment, Autolycus warns Iolaus to make Hercules' next story bigger and scarier so people will believe him. The group then celebrates their victory at a tavern on the Macedonian coast. Hercules says they only need one more job before they can retire peacefully. He dreams of living out his days on the barbarian lands near the Black Sea, alongside with Tydeus, cause he's the only one who can temper his rage. Their peace is interrupted when Princess Erginia of Thrace arrives with royal soldiers. She approaches Hercules, explaining that her father, King Codys, is at war with a ruthless warlord named Rhesus. Villages are burning, innocents are being slaughtered, and the king wants Hercules to train his army in exchange for gold, as much as they can carry. The promise of wealth convinces Hercules and his companions to accept the offer. Upon reaching Thrace, they're greeted by General Cytocles, who leads them to the royal palace. There, Erginia's young son Arius runs out to meet Hercules, excitedly naming all the monsters his hero once defeated. Erginia quickly pulls the boy away, warning him to stay clear of Hercules. When asked if he's ever met royalty, Hercules recalls returning from a mission 3 years earlier. He remembers his wife Megara and their children welcoming him home after his triumph over the Hydra. But the memory turns dark, his family brutally murdered. The trauma jolts him back to the present. Hercules and his mercenaries are introduced to King Codys. Codys recognizes Amphiaraus as the seer who has foreseen his own death but continues fighting, knowing his time hasn't yet come. When Codys doubts Atalanta's abilities because she's a woman, she instantly proves him wrong by shooting a guard's helmet off their hands. At dinner, Codys explains their dire situation. His country is caught in civil war against Rhesus, a powerful warlord and supposed sorcerer who commands men twisted by magic into monstrous forms. Codys laments that his army is now made up mostly of untrained refugees. Though Hercules claims he's only a mercenary fighting for gold, Erginia's heartfelt plea to bring peace to their land convinces him to take the job seriously. The next day, Hercules and his team begin training the soldiers, starting with their weak shield formations. Soon after, Codys informs Hercules that his scout, Phineus, has spotted Rhesus preparing to attack the Bessi tribe within 6 days. Codys insists on marching immediately, but Hercules warns that the soldiers aren't ready and that doing so would cost countless lives. Codys refuses to back down, determined to strike first. That night, Cytocles flirts with Atalanta until Hercules intervenes, sending him away. Meanwhile, young Arius sneaks into the camp and discovers Tydeus chained to a chariot, growling in his sleep. Hercules arrives and explains that Tydeus, once found as a feral child of war, is his most loyal warrior, one who relives his nightmares every night. He then takes Arius back to his mother, who works as a healer, and gifts the boy the tooth of the Nemean lion. The next morning, Hercules and his mercenaries lead Codys' troops to the Bessi lands. When they arrive, Hercules halts them. Something feels wrong. The sight ahead confirms his instincts. Rows of severed heads on stakes. They move cautiously through the ruined village, where the air reeks of smoke and death. Everywhere they look are burned huts, scattered corpses, and blood still wet on the ground. They realize, too late, Rhesus has already struck. Siticles checks one of the fresh corpses, but to everyone's shock, the body suddenly jerks awake and lunges at Iolaus. Before it can strike, Hercules grabs the man and hurls him toward Autolycus, who finishes him with a knife. Suddenly, dozens of warriors burst out from hidden tunnels beneath the ground. It's an ambush. They've walked straight into a trap. Hercules quickly realizes that Rhesus must have cast a spell clouding the villagers' minds, turning them into killers. He shouts for the soldiers to form a shield wall, while Codys' guards rush to protect their king. When Hercules asks Amphiorus if they'll survive the coming battle, the prophet calmly replies, "Yes, it's not my time yet. I'm not sure about yours." The Bessi tribe leader steps forward, brandishing a curved blade, challenging Hercules to single combat. But the man is no match. Hercules breaks the metal tip from Atlanta's arrow and drives it into the leader's head, killing him instantly. The Thracian army erupts in cheers, chanting Hercules' name. But the fight isn't over. The enraged Bessi charge forward. Hercules bellows for his men to take battle positions, and the battlefield explodes into chaos. Hercules and Tydeus tear through waves of enemies while Atlanta leaps into action, shooting down attackers with deadly precision. The Bessi swarm the Thracian shield wall, hacking relentlessly to reach Codys. Hercules kicks a carriage down a slope, crushing several foes, while Amphiorus slashes through attackers with his unique four-headed blade. Atlanta climbs a wooden tower for a better vantage point, raining arrows down on the enemy. Autolycus fights fiercely beside Tydeus. Still, the Thracian soldiers begin to fall. Their shield wall buckles under the pressure. Siticles joins the fray, wielding his bone-handled whip to drive back enemies closing in on Codys and Iolaus. As the battle intensifies, Hercules orders his mercenaries to bring in the chariots. The moment they thunder onto the field, chaos erupts, but Hercules and his crew hold the line. Amphiorus deploys rotating side blades from his chariot, cutting through the Bessi ranks, while Hercules wields his great sword, cleaving down enemies who try to reach the king. Realizing they're being overpowered, the remaining Bessi warriors retreat into the forest. The battered Thracian army stands victorious, but at a terrible cost. Codys looks across the field of corpses and screams for Rhesus, demanding he show himself. In the distance, a shadowy figure watches silently. Later, Codys meets with Hercules and laments with grief and anger that they came to save a village and now he has lost half of his army. Hercules reminds him that he warned against marching with untrained men. When Siticles turns his rage on Phineus for the faulty intelligence and prepares to execute him, Autolycus intervenes, stopping the general and sparing Phineus's life. That evening, Erginia and her healers arrive on the battlefield to tend to the wounded. Inside a medical tent, she treats Hercules' injuries, offering him a drink for the pain, which he refuses. She quietly remarks that her late husband also hated medicine. Hercules listens and, after a moment, asks about her son, Arius. When she turns the question on him, asking if he has children, Hercules grows silent, his expression darkening. He finally tells her to leave. Left alone, Hercules is haunted by flashes of his past, his hands drenched in blood, his wife and children lying dead before him. In another vision, King Eurystheus condemns him for their murder, sentencing him to live with the guilt rather than die, cursed to be tormented by the memory of what he's done. Hercules jolts awake, breathing heavily. From outside the tent, he hears faint laughter, the voices of children. Drawn into the woods, he finds himself surrounded by corpses and visions of his slain family. Then, from the darkness, the three-headed beast of Hades bursts forth, snarling as it charges at him. Hercules takes a spear and strikes, but the creature vanishes, an illusion of his tormented mind. Tydeus rushes in and calms him down. At dawn, Amphiorus approaches Hercules and asks if he's had the vision again. Hercules brushes it off, but Amphiorus reminds him of his prophecy. You'll never find peace until you face the beast that haunts you. Later that day, Erginia meets with Hercules' companions, Atlanta, Tydeus, Autolycus, and Iolaus, wanting to know the truth about how his wife and children died. Autolycus tells her no one really knows. They found Hercules alone, his family already dead, and he couldn't remember what happened. When she asks if they believe he's innocent, Autolycus explains how they grew up together as orphans, surviving the streets until Hercules began taking royal missions. Atlanta adds how Hercules helped her avenge her murdered family. Amphiorus concludes solemnly that Hercules' family's death still haunts him, and only the gods can help him find peace. The next morning, Iolaus presents the newly forged weapons and armor Hercules designed: strong iron blades, impenetrable shields, and crested helmets bearing the lion's symbol. When Siticles arrives, mocking the display, Iolaus invites him to test the armor. Tydeus slams his axe against it, and the blade doesn't even dent it, silencing Siticles. Soon, Hercules and his team begin retraining the Thracian soldiers, shaping them into disciplined warriors. As Iolaus trains beside the tents, Phineus reports to Codys that he's located Rhesus's camp and requests permission to infiltrate and gather more information. Hercules suggests approaching through the forest to take Rhesus by surprise. Later, Hercules confides in Amphiaraus about the plan. Rhesus and his men are encamped on Mount Asticus. Tydeus checks the soldiers' shield wall, making sure it's strong. Once satisfied, the army begins its march through the forest toward Mount Asticus. But as they get closer, they get no sign of enemy activity. Meanwhile, Rhesus and his army suddenly appear on the horizon. From a distance, they look like centaurs, half-human, half-horse warriors. A trumpet sounds across the valley, signaling his oncoming troops. But as they approach, the illusion breaks. They're not mythical creatures at all, just men riding against the low sun to create the effect. Rhesus removes his helmet and calls out to Codys, warning him that if it's a fight he wants, his army is ready to oblige. Among Rhesus's men, another soldier removes his helmet. It's Phineus. Codys is enraged to discover his scout has been working with Rhesus all along. Rhesus offers Codys one last chance to surrender and avoid unnecessary bloodshed, but Codys refuses, declaring that the battle must go on. The two sides clash in a massive, chaotic fight. Codys' army fans out into formation, shields raised, spears pointed forward. Hercules signals Atalanta and Tydeus, who charge out from the trees on their chariot. Atalanta rains arrows down on Rhesus's horsemen. Hercules and Amphiaraus fight on foot, cutting through soldiers with powerful strikes. The chaos intensifies. Tydeus and Atalanta are knocked off their chariot, but keep fighting on foot. Autolycus joins in, throwing knives with deadly accuracy. Rhesus orders his archers to open fire. A storm of flaming arrows rains down. The soldiers quickly form shield walls for protection. Amphiaraus spreads his arms wide, accepting his supposed fate, convinced his death has finally come. Yet miraculously, not a single arrow touches him. Though Rhesus's army is larger, Hercules' forces fight with better discipline and strategy. One by one, Rhesus's warriors begin to retreat, unable to withstand the organized defense. Furious, Rhesus stays behind to challenge Hercules himself. Mounted on horseback, he charges forward, but Hercules sidesteps and pushes both Rhesus and his horse to the ground with one arm. The fight is over. Hercules and Codys have won. Rhesus and several of his surviving soldiers are taken back to Thrace in chains. In the capital, they're publicly humiliated as the townsfolk throw rocks and food at them. Hercules intervenes, stopping the abuse. When Hercules confronts Rhesus about burning villages and slaughtering innocents, Rhesus denies it, claiming neither he nor his men committed those crimes. He warns Hercules that he's fighting for the wrong side. Siticles silences him and pushes Rhesus away. Later, in the royal hall, Rhesus is chained and displayed before the people. Erginia, moved by compassion, goes to give him water, but Codys stops her. Siticles then crowns Codys as ruler of a united Thrace. Meanwhile, Hercules tells his companions about Rhesus's claim of innocence. Autolycus dismisses it, saying it's not their problem, their job is done. He insists they take their payment and leave. That night, Hercules confronts Erginia, sensing she knows more than she's saying. She finally reveals the truth. Rhesus was telling the truth. He didn't attack first. Codys provoked the war to expand his empire. Erginia admits she obeys her father only out of fear. Codys murdered her husband, the previous king, by poisoning him, and now threatens to execute her son, Arius, the rightful heir, if she ever disobeys. Erginia, in tears, begs Hercules to take her son Arius away and keep him safe. Their talk is cut short when Siticles arrives, summoning Hercules to see the king. Hercules confronts Codys, who proudly admits his betrayal, saying ruling Thrace was always his dream. He offers Hercules a place beside him, but Hercules refuses. Codys mocks him as a child killer and orders him to take his pay and leave. As they prepare to go, Hercules feels pity for the people. He gives his gold to Autolycus and decides to stay and fight. Though Autolycus rides off, Atalanta, Tydeus, Amphiaraus, and Iolaus stay with him. That night, Hercules and his group infiltrate the palace but are quickly surrounded. Siticles orders their surrender as Codys arrives, furious at their return. Guards drag in Erginia and young Arius. Siticles exposes her plan to help Hercules. Enraged, Codys seizes Arius, and Siticles knocks Hercules unconscious. Hercules awakens chained in a dungeon, facing the same 3 black wolves from his nightmares. King Eurystheus appears, revealing he allied with Codi's and sent those wolves to kill Hercules' family. He drugged Hercules that night, making him believe he murdered his wife and children himself. The truth fills Hercules with rage. Codi's orders Ergenia's execution. As guards move in, Amphiaraos urges Hercules to embrace his divine heritage. Hercules roars, rips free from his chains, and kills the guards, saving her. Codi's releases the wolves, but Hercules slays them barehanded, then frees his allies and even Rhesus. Together, they storm the palace, cutting down guards. In battle, a guard throws a spear at Amphiaraos, who smiles and accepts what he thinks is his destined death, but Hercules intercepts it, saving Amphiaraos. He then confronts Eurystheus, who pleads for mercy. Hercules ignores him and drives his blade through Eurystheus' chest, avenging his family. Cytocles sneak attack Hercules with his bone wipe, but is stabbed by Iolaus. The group regroups and faces Codi's army in the courtyard. Hercules pleads with the soldiers to fight for freedom, but they obey Codi's in fear. Codi's drags out Arius, threatening the boy's life. Suddenly, Autolycus appears, leading a surprise attack. Immediately, a fierce battle erupts. Atalanta and Rhesus rain arrows from above, taking down several guards. Amid the chaos, young Arius runs for safety, but arrows begin flying toward him. Tydeus rushes out with his dual axes, skillfully blocking the arrows and clearing a path for Arius to reach his mother. Even after saving the boy, Tydeus charges toward the archers, fearlessly cutting them down one by one. But the onslaught is too much. He's struck by a barrage of arrows and collapses, mortally wounded. Hercules races to his side, holding his fallen brother in arms as Tydeus takes his final breath in his arms. Enraged, Codi's orders his men to advance and kill Hercules along with his mercenaries. The group fights, tipping down burning pots of fire from the palace walls to keep the soldiers back. But Codi's is relentless, commanding his army to march through the flames and attack. Furious and with no other option left and fury burning inside him, Hercules channels his divine power, summoning every ounce of power within. He tears a massive statue of Hera from its base and hurls it, crushing soldiers, including Codi's himself, who's thrown off the balcony by the statue's head, meeting his end in the chaos. When the dust settles, the surviving soldiers drops their weapons and kneels before Hercules, recognizing him as the true son of Zeus. Peace returns to Thrace, and young Arius takes the throne. The movie ends. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe for more epic stories.